Welcome back to Second Wind. It's been a crazy couple weeks. Um, I keep forgetting to record in the boat, but I just want to throw an update up here because maybe eventually I'll start recording on the boat instead of just focusing on working on it. Um, it's been a lot more trouble than I thought it was going to be. After having a couple of friends come by and look at the boat, they agreed that it was a good deal. The boat did need work. We already knew for that price it was going to need work. But we are running into issues that are a lot bigger than anticipated. And the plans for this boat are going to require it to be very reliable and safe. And right now it's not. We still have plans on moving the boat in 2 weeks. So that hasn't changed. But what has changed, or let me start from the beginning. So the weekend after I bought the boat, I went and I cataloged all the parts that were on the boat. We already knew that one engine wasn't running. They just needed to be put back together, allegedly. The other engine was running, but it had a serious oil leak. The forward bilge wasn't working. We hadn't started the generator yet. There were some other little miscellaneous stuff, like there was a water leak in the freezer. The refrigerator wasn't working. The stove was working. And the air conditioner in the salon is not blowing cold air. Since then, we have fixed the forward bilge. We fixed the water leak on the freezer. We have repaired the oil leak on the motor that was running. We have identified the issue with the refrigerator. It's going to be repairable. And we started reassembling the port side motor, which was the motor that had just put the previous owner had just put a new oil cooler on the boat. But then he had a heart attack. He survived, but that's when he decided to let the boat go. So the following weekend, which was last weekend, I went back up there to install a new bilge pump, uh, fix a couple of odds and ends, and continue on reinstalling the parts on the port side motor. What we found out yesterday was that the turbo that has been provided by the previous owner is the wrong turbo, or the bolts are wrong. I'm not 100% sure about that. But the studs that we have, they're double-ended studs. They don't fit the motor. They don't fit the turbo, but they fit the motor. So we're gonna just go on a limb and say this is the wrong turbo. So I have to replace the turbo. All of the hoses on that boat, on that motor, need to be replaced. Probably more realistically, every piece of rubber in the entire boat needs to be replaced. I can I can deal with that. But as we were putting it together, we saw some other things that concerned us, like the um, cooler, the round cooler pack that goes into the oil cooler was beat into the oil cooler housing with a 2x4. We found the 2x4 in the engine compartment with marks on it that match the oil cooler perfectly. So it was jammed in there with a hammer and a 2x4, and it is not fully seated. So that needs to come apart if we can get it apart and replaced. The turbo needs to be replaced. The exhaust hoses need to be replaced. The intake hoses need to be replaced. Those are all okay things. old boat. But what we did not expect was the amount of corrosion that we were finding on the cooling side of the port motor. We were getting ready to put the end cap back on the heat exchanger when my friend noticed that there was a little bit of buildup inside the end cap. So he grabbed a wire brush and started brushing the end cap. And then he tapped on the end cap with the little scraper part on the end to try to loosen some of the corrosion up. And when he did that, I'll put a picture right here, it knocked almost a 1 inch hole in that end cap. That end cap is probably a half an inch thick, aluminum or steel or whatever, but it is a thick piece of plate metal. It's a robust thing to just chip a hole in it by tapping with a wire brush. We also noticed that there were no zincs on that engine at all. We did find replacement zincs on the boat, but there wasn't even the slightest trace of an anode anywhere on that motor. After this point, we decided to just stop working on the motor. We need to order parts. Parts are very, very hard to get with these Volvo Penta motors. It took me over a week to get a very small block off plate for the starboard engine for the oil filter bypass housing. The oil filter housing, there's a bypass in there with a little plate. That plate was rusted, and I thought it was like outside just surface rust. That's a thing. Uh, so we got that fixed, but now we are finding more and more corrosion on the port side motor to the point where I no longer think it's feasible to repair this engine. We need to tear into the other engine. We didn't do this yesterday because it was such a hit to my. We didn't do this yesterday because it was so emotional after finding all the damage on a motor that the previous owner said ran. And I'm not knocking the guy, maybe the motor does run. We haven't heard that side run yet. But we decided to stop working on it and start looking for parts. Well, all of the parts for this boat are either used, old new stock, or they're going to have to be custom fabricated. Just the plate that goes on the end of the heat exchanger is $500 for a piece of metal the size of my face. 500 bucks. The heat exchanger is 1,500. The oil cooler, we didn't even price it. We stopped after $2,000 worth of parts that we already know need to be replaced on that motor. I can already hear it in the comments now that you bought a boat. What did you expect? And I wholeheartedly understand. And maybe if I'd have done a little bit more research, I would have known not to buy a boat with these motors in it. And if the parts were readily available, it wouldn't hurt so bad. But these parts are not readily available. They are eBay, Facebook Marketplace, used, or finding a machine shop and becoming very good friends with a machine shop. A lot of this is going to be beyond my capability as a parts changer because I'm not a mechanic to handle on my own. We're also running into some electrical issues where most of the systems seem to work, but it's hit or miss on what is working, and I'm not 100% sure how to get those. Like maybe there's not the right switches on, or but it was a huge hit yesterday. I paid $8,500 for the boat. I had a budget of 10,000, which I knew was a stretch. I'm not being unrealistic about that. I knew my budget was very low. My budget is gone now, and the boat is still 3 hours away, 3.5 hours away. So just to go up there and back home is an entire day of driving. It's, fuel. I have to take food with me. It just the cost of going to the boat is starting to become prohibitive compared to the amount of work that the boat needs. So I don't know what we're going to do. This just happened yesterday. So I don't know. Maybe I should have saved up another 10 grand and bought a $20,000 boat. And it would have only needed $10,000 worth of work, not buying a $10,000 boat that needs $20,000 worth of work. I think the big takeaway for me right now is if you want a $50,000 boat and you're pretty set on that, you're going to have a $50,000 boat no matter how much you paid for the boat. Time is somewhat free. My labor is free. So I am going to get out on that. But now the options are continue to spend money on those Volvo motors, which is going to be a lot, or once I get the boat back to my home marina to pull the engines, can pull the engines, pull the transmissions, catalog every part on the boat, and try to sell as much of that as possible to not pay for, but to help fund a repower on that boat and put something in that boat that I can get parts for. Maybe like a Cummins, or even if I can get some older, more common motors like a Ford Lehman or a Perkins, two of them because it is a twin engine boat. So I could replace it with a set of Perkins, a set of Lehmans, or I think the ideal right now would be 6BT Cummins. But then I'm looking at $20,000 on a boat that I paid $8,500 for. So that turns it into a $30,000 boat when I could have just bought a $30,000 boat and been way further ahead than I'm going to be with this boat. So, depending on the information that I find out soon, this could be the last video. And lessons learned, hard, very expensive lessons learned. But back to work, and I still stand by it though. Dream big. Just buy the boat. But I'm going to say now, just buy the boat, but $1,000 survey will save you so much money. So that's an idea. So definitely budget a survey, no matter how cheap the boat is. budget a survey. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'm sorry it's another talking head video. Comment down below, subscribe. I hope to have more content. But see you on the next one.